Hello everybody and welcome to the Fortress Comic News episode 85. This week, no Mike, but I was able to schedule 2 interviews for you this week. So I hope you'll enjoy them. We've got Patrick Trehey from Alterna Comics, who wrote a book called The 12, a really good kind of post-apocalyptic journey book with a lot of cool moments in it. It's going to be on Kickstarter soon for the trade, or you can go onto their Etsy website and find it there. And I also brought a good friend of mine who's been creating comics for 10 years now, Mr. Joe Pangrazio. You know him from Cthulhu Holmes, as well as Zombie Barbecue, and a bunch of other stuff throughout the years. And you can find him on Twitch doing video game stuff. He's all over the place. And he's got some cool stories to tell about different comics people in our area and just what it's like to be a comic creator. So I hope you all enjoy this week. Next week, Mike will be back, and we can talk about Preacher and all the other great news and some not so great news of the past couple of weeks. So thank you all for watching. Remember, you can find me at Fortress Chris on Twitter, or you can find the show at FCN_official. Remember to head over to FortressComicNews.com. And if you're listening to this on iTunes, 5-star reviews are appreciated. They help us find more ears for people to listen to us. And you can go to YouTube and subscribe to us, thumb up the video, and comment down below. So once again, thanks for watching and enjoy the interviews.
See if I can do the camera. There we go.
Cool. So is the last name Trehey? Or
Trehey.
Trehey.
Yep.
Okay, so basically, I'm going to cut you into the middle of the show. So we'll do a quick little intro, and then we'll just start chatting.
Cool. Sounds good.
So welcome back, everybody. Today we have a awesome guest with us, writer of The 12. Welcome to the show, Patrick Trehey.
Trehey. There you go.
Me and names, man. I'm awful. How you doing today?
Pretty good. How are you?
I'm doing great. So we normally start off these conversations by just, talking about your kind of your secret origin. So what got you into comics? What got you into writing comics? Tell my listeners that story.
Well, I'm actually sort of an unusual story in that I didn't grow up reading comics. I didn't start reading comics till I was older. I was in college for writing. I took a course in writing, and then I decided to go back to college to get a degree in fiction, and kind of stumbled into comics. There was a comics writing class, and once I tried that, never really looked back. And I got into reading comics and got to know comics people. But I grew up on video games, and I feel like that was a pretty easy leap from video games to comics.
Yeah, those are my 2 parallels.
Yeah.
Especially in the Neversoft days when we were playing like the Spider-Man game.
Yeah. I remember that one. But yeah, there were so many good video games, so that's sort of what got me into the whole nerd world.
Yeah, there's definitely like a connection there. I mean, you do see a lot of video games getting comic either adaptations or continuations of the stories and so on.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, The 12.
Mm-hmm.
Explain the book to my listeners. What's the pitch for it?
Sure. The quick pitch is it's a story of a secretive group called the 12 who are rebuilding society in the ruins of Chicago, which is where I'm from. The first book in the series is the story of Caleb, who's a father of 5, who's struggling to keep his family going on a desolate plot of land. And as winter is approaching, they're forced out onto the dead roads in search of greener pastures. So that's the quick pitch. I've said that maybe a few times. We do a lot of conventions and end up saying those like paragraphs like hundreds of times. So they are like deeply committed to memory.
Yes. So I mean, where did this story come from? Is this something that's been with you for a while, or?
It kind of all came out of a drawing that I did a long time ago. I'm not the artist of the story. I'm the writer. The artist is a guy named Luis Suarez. But I used to draw a lot. I drew a lot when I was a kid, all the way up until college. And I think at some point I realized that like I felt like my art wasn't like good enough to build a career on it. So then I kind of ended up switching to writing, and I felt like I was better at that. But anyways, I drew this picture a long time ago of these like gas masked men, like looming over the sky. And I decided to write it out, and that kind of became the first scene. That was like the first 5 pages of the book. And once I had written that, kind of just kept expanding on it and more. Ended up writing the first issue, and then I was like, well, what happens to this family after that? Ended up writing the first book. And at that point I was going to stop. Like that was going to be the whole thing. But I ended up writing way more than that. So yeah. So the first book, what Alternus Publishing is issues 1 through 5. And then, hopefully more. I think we're going to do more, but yeah, that's the first book in the series.
So you found success with Alterna in this book?
Yeah. I mean, the sales have been pretty good, so I think we're going to continue on with it. We started art on the next project, so that's underway. So I'm pretty excited.
That's awesome, man. So can we be expecting some sort of trade coming up?
Yeah. So the first trade will come out in December. That's issues 1 through 5. And then we're gonna have more coming out at a later date. We haven't determined that yet, but that's in the works.
I'm still trying to figure that one out.
Yeah.
So I mean, your art team, how did you guys hook up?
So I found them online, actually, through a website called Digital Webbing Forum, which is like a forum for freelance artists who are looking for work. I had been through like several different artists at that point, like trying to work with like random people that I had found throughout the city, and like it didn't work out. But then I just put up an ad on Digital Webbing Forum and got like a ton of hits, and Luis was the best one, so that was that. Yeah, I liked his style. His style was the best, but like most importantly, he was like super consistent and just like and really reliable, which is hard to find in an artist.
Yes, it's so cool that nowadays it's just put something up on the internet and you have replies within the hour.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I mean, he's like it's crazy because he lives in Spain. Like we've never actually met in person. So I mean the power of the internet.
Yes. So I mean, going back to your origin a little bit, it's kind of interesting because most of the people we talk to, as a matter of fact, pretty much all of them have been lifelong comic people. So
yeah.
My big question for you is comics appealing for you to tell original stories, or is there any draw for you or real like need to do something that's more typical comics, like a superhero book, or maybe even do something for Marvel or DC, or is that kind of like you just want to do your own thing?
I'm kind of more in the like do my own thing camp. Like, I mean, it would be cool to work for them, but that's not really my goal. I don't know. I mean, if it came up like down the line, it'd be cool, but it's not really like something I'm shooting for. Because like I've got the 12 going on, and I have other projects that I want to work on too. Like I've got some other stories in my back pocket that I want to put in the works. You know.
I feel like comic fans is, especially like I said, most of us are lifelong and have read a bunch of Marvel, DC. That's what we grew up on. And you always have that like pitch in your back pocket, like, oh man, if Marvel was in front of me, I have the Captain America story or whatever. It's interesting to find someone who didn't grow up on all that and maybe doesn't have as close of a connection to those characters as we do.
I mean, yeah, I guess not. Like I was definitely like I grew up on the Batman animated series, and I mean, like I watched like the Justice League, and I watched Spider-Man and all that when I was a kid. But I don't have like the deep connection to the superhero comics, because like it's kind of intimidating like getting into it later in life, because then it's like, where do you start? Like there's like decades worth of stories, and people are like, oh, you like check out this guy's run and this guy's run, and I'm like, I don't even know where.
Yeah,
but I've read.
It's funny when I talk to people about that, because you say it in that way, and I have the same exact. I feel the same exact way. I just have a much more optimistic point of view for it. Whereas, like, you say, "Oh, there's so much. Where do I start?" And I say, "There's so much, man. I can't wait to start on all this."
Yeah. No, I don't want to. Like, that's great. Like, that's better. It's just, I don't know. Like, there's so much. There's so much to choose. I've read a couple like superhero comics. I prefer to go for ones that are like a full arc, like like ones that aren't ongoing, like Killing Joke or something like that, where you can like just sit down and read the whole graphic novel and then like that's it. But I guess I'm not into like huge like long series.
Continuity's not your thing.
No.
Well, come on, man. You gotta know what's going on pre-crisis in this world.
Yeah, it gets confusing.
It does. It's a giant puzzle, and I think that's one of the things I love about it, is like just putting all the puzzle pieces together. But I love also just creators like yourself who are out there creating original stories. It feels like a medium where people are taking a lot of chances, and it's not like movies or TV or even video games where it's like, I got this cool idea for a story, now give me millions of dollars to make it work.
Yeah. I mean, comics can be a little pricey to get into, but it's not like making a movie or a game for sure.
Yeah, it feels like it's one of those things you can take a chance on and not completely go bankrupt.
We can certainly try.
Well, hey man, if my listeners wanted to get a hold of you on online or anything like that, what's the best way for them to find you?
Twitter's easiest. I'm all over there. I got 3 handles. I got at Patrick Trehey, all one word, no space. I'm at Soul Comics, SOL Comics. That's sort of my own imprint. And then I'm also at the 12_comic. That's the Roman numeral 12. I'm also on Facebook, and you can check out some more of my stuff at soulcomics.com. That's SOL-comics.com.
Awesome. And everybody remember, you can pick up the 12 on Alterna's Etsy page. I'm sure issue by issue, and then if you would rather get the trade, that'll be out, you said, in December?
Yep. Yeah, we're actually like gonna be launching a Kickstarter real soon to fund that, so that's what I've been doing lately, gearing up for that.
So everybody follow Patrick on that, and you can either donate to the Kickstarter or talk to your local comic shop. Patrick, thanks for being on the show. I really appreciate it, and good luck on everything, man. The book was awesome. I really enjoyed it, and hopefully we'll get to talk to you again, and Mike will be around for.
No. Oh, cool.
Well.
Thanks for having me, man. Appreciate it.
Thank you. So, everybody, we got Joe Pangrazio with us today. Another guest on today's show. How's it going today, Joe?
Oh, just fantastic.
We were just talking for like a solid hour, and we decided we should start recording.
It's a good idea. Kind of get warmed up.
So, Joe, you've done a bunch of books. You've done Zombie Barbecue. You've done Cthulhu Holmes. You've done Kayfabe. I keep saying Kayfab because, Britney Spears rules my world.
Right. And you don't know wrestling. It's a legit wrestling term.
And a bunch of other stuff. So, as we start with all of our guests, let's hear the secret origins. What got you into comics and what got you into writing comics? Or creating comics,
right.
Is our term.
Get into comics. It's been an old mistress. When I was 5, the first memory I have of buying a comic was 5 years old. I had to be watching the 90s X-Men at the time.
So you have the same entry point I do.
Yeah, and like Spider-Man.
Yeah.
But there was Elba is a small town in Western New York. It doesn't even have a stoplight. So like there's one stoplight town, so this is a no stoplight town. But we had a little drugstore, and they had the old little newsstand. And I went in, my grandma took me and she was getting something, and I'm like, oh look, it's X-Men. And my first comic was a Jim Lee cover. It was Executioner's Song with Apocalypse on it when he's in pink. And the first page is Charles Xavier with a techno-organic virus all over him dying. And I'm 5, like, whoa, what is this? And so I got some comics back then. And it was like, they did Spider-Man Adventures, which was based on the cartoon, so I got that, X-Men Adventures. And then Topps, when we would go grocery shopping for a while, did these old 2-packs, where it would be old comics, like maybe 6 months old. And they just throw it in together. It's like, normally they're $5, but it's $3 for 3 comics or whatever.
Yeah.
So I get those. So I got like an issue of X-Men 2099 and like all this randoms. I got Shadowhawk. I didn't know what the hell Shadowhawk was. But I'm like, Shadowhawk, and there's a big green guy with a fin on his head. That looks cool. So I got that. And that was also when, remember Book It from Pizza Hut?
Yes.
So that was what I would read a lot of times. I mean, I would read other books. I would read books, too, but I'd read comics. Just had to read 50 minutes a night. Okay, fine. I'll read my comic book.
Comics are reading.
Yeah. And then it was always, I never got a lot. Never got a lot of books. But I also remember when I was like 8, I was talking about this 2 weeks ago, I think. There used to be Stafford Trading Post. And that was what it was called. It was like a little general store in Stafford. Went in once with my dad. And I'm like, oh, and the Spawn toys came out. And all the Spawn toys for the first wave had a comic in them. Okay. Which was great because they were toys aimed at children with comics basically made for children based on a comic not made for children at all. So I had a whole bunch of those because they were all jacked up. And I'm like, these are awesome. Go in there. My first issue of Spawn was 37 or 38. And the cover is Spawn in a back alley snapping someone's wrist with blood shooting out. And something written on the alleyway as he's like stepping on another guy whose teeth are jacked up and blood's coming out and everything. I got that. I was like 9. And I'm like, it's Spawn! This is the toys, they want Spawn! And then also is the comic where Clown is talking about how he wants to end God's reign forever. So it was an interesting time. So then Spawn kind of kept me in. Where it was like, there were no comic shops around. Yeah, grocery stores wouldn't necessarily carry comics. Like, they'd have a spinner rack, but some wouldn't. We moved, so it got tough. But I was able to, when we moved to Macedon, the Topps in Parrington had a spinner rack, and every month had the new issue of Spawn. So I kept getting Spawn. And then when I was like 17 is when I found Lost Worlds in Macedon, which became something else later on we won't talk about. And I went in and I got Spawn. And then from there, Spawn, that was when Ultimates came out, so I got Ultimates, and then I started getting back into comics. So then fast forward 3 or 4 years, and a former friend is doing 24-hour comic day, where it's like you sit down, 24 hours, you draw a 24-page comic. All right, I'll do it, whatever, fuck it. So I sit down, that's when I first met Chris Yambar. It's the second time I met Stephen Lindsay, because the first time I met Stephen Lindsay, I had gone like 2 weeks ahead because he did a signing at Borders. And he was like, no one's here on board. So I'm like, all right, I'll drive out and see you. So the second time I met Stephen Lindsay.
So anyone who doesn't know, Chris Yambar done a bunch of Bongo comics.
known a lot for his Simpsons work. He does independent stuff.
Yeah, his baby was Mr. Beat. He did a lot of licensed work for I Dream of Jeannie.
Yeah.
He did a Munsters book. He did a Popeye book for Chester, Illinois, which is the hometown, quote unquote, of Popeye.
Uh-huh.
And they dedicated us, they did a big statue of Popeye, and you could get inscriptions. This is deep radio. This is inside baseball, but you could do inscriptions. You could buy inscriptions on the statue. And he bought for George, his friend George Broderick Jr. Great artist. George Broderick Jr., world's greatest comic artist. So they go to this big, dedication, and they unveil the statue, and then he didn't tell George, and George looks up and is like, that's my name. Aww.
So he's been all over the place. I mean, a lot of people just know him for his Bongo comics. It's the best way to get into what he's doing. And then Stephen Lindsay is a local guy who...
He's a tattoo artist now.
Yes, he's a tattoo artist now, and he did a book called...
Jesus Hates Zombies.
That's right, for 215 Inc.
Originally for Alterna.
Oh, really?
Yes.
I did not know that story.
I actually found... Our friend we don't talk about got a sampler from Alterna when they were first kind of starting out. And he showed me, he's like, well, there's a couple of books that look kind of interesting to me. What do you think? I said, Jesus Hates Zombies. That one. We should get that one. That's the one we should get. There was also another book in that first batch. And I'm going to try and make him listen to this. Tell him. Jeff McCumsky's Human Smart Bomb. So before Fubar, before Honcho, before these weird historical comics he's doing for the Navy now, Human Smart Bomb, and it was like this post-apocalyptic future and this whatever, and it was great. And he stopped doing it. And to this day, I go, I want more, Jeff. Where is it? He's like, you're the only... To the point where when he sent me some Fubar stuff, he sent me an original page that he drew from it. Just here, Joe. You're the only one that gives a shit about any of this. No one else knows about that book. No one else cares about that book. But I do. And I'm never going to let him forget it. So those were Alterna books.
That's funny because we're in the middle of an Alterna kind of slam session where we're working with a bunch of Alterna creators and having them on the show. So that was completely accidental, I swear.
I know
But that's interesting.
I know things. Yeah. That's when I first learned about Peter Simetti. He was always a good guy. Like I said, Fubar still is technically, last I knew, of Alterna imprint. And I think that really comes down to Jeff appreciates everything Peter's done for him.
Yeah.
And so it's like...
They still put it on their homepage.
Fubar kind of blew up and became its own thing, but he always wanted to make sure people knew it was an Alterna book. Because when you're an indie publisher, that's all you got.
Yeah. So you met Lindsay and Yambar.
Yes. And actually, Youngbluff.
Youngbluff.
Jason was there.
We had him on the show recently.
He won't remember me.
Great dude.
I was there with him. Yambar had crashed, I think, or maybe Yambar was still there. I took 24-hour comedy, so we started at noon. I went till noon the next day.
Yeah.
And we were in the store all night. So I went with Yambar like 2 a.m. to get something at Wegmans because he was crashing because he had some, diabetes, whatever. So he had to get food in him. And Youngbluff, I was there with Youngbluff until 10 a.m. He was still drawing. Like I said, you don't remember me, but it was a fun. I've always wanted to get another jam session like that together because it's really fun to have guys in the same room. I mean, Lindsay was done by 5 o'clock.
Yeah.
He just knocked it out. He's never let me print it, but I have copies of what he drew that day. And that was when I first saw him because he's one of those guys like, Stephen Lindsay, I love you. That stuff. You're never going to listen to this. But I do love him.
I'm emailing it to you, Lindsay.
Yeah. But he was always one of those guys, I can't draw. I gotta have other artists. I'm not good. I can't draw. So then he did this really cool, really funny, actually almost Scotty Young-esque comic strip of just vulgarness. It was just foul-mouthed Chris. I'll let that. It was foul-mouthed Chris. This 8-year-old kid just cursing up a storm. And
that sounds like Scotty Young.
Right. I'm like, you should put this in print. He's like, no, nobody wants to see that. Now he's a tattoo artist. So yeah, if you ever do listen to this, Lindsay, can't draw, huh, buddy? but yeah, those were good times. And then it was from there. It was where I kind of, it wasn't good. I still have it. I might still have it for download on the site. I know I still have a copy of it. It wasn't good. But that's also where I came up with Saul Panley. Because we were talking about Kiss. And I think I came up with Fancy Phil Spector. Maybe that was year 2. I came up with characters that I still use now. And then I started doing comics.
It'd be a very interesting concept today because, you know, Western New York, we have a decent crowd up here of comic artists. And to get all of them together to kind of talk shop, kind of in the same vein as like a Marvel Summit, would be fun.
It would be. The problem is that we are Western New York.
Yeah.
And so we aren't Rust Belt, but we are Rust Belt, so we don't like being around each other. Like, we all like each other. There's no bad blood.
Yeah.
It's just, I don't want to be in a room with you for 24 hours.
Oh, don't get me wrong. I'm the biggest homebody around, so
yeah.
I know what you're saying.
But no, I would. I've always wanted. There's a few ideas I want to do, but it becomes that thing where, do I want to be the guy that runs comic shows, or do I want to be the guy that goes to comic shows? And that's a choice that when you're small, you have to make. When you get bigger, you can do both. Because Chris Yambar, here's another thing. I have so many Chris Yambar stories. But for 5 years, we did a comic show in Chris Yambar's front lawn.
Yep, I remember that one.
And I made money at it every year. Except for the last year when we weren't on Chris Yambar's front lawn. And so I always wanted to do that. And he could do it, but also it was in his front yard. And he's a special case. He's one of those guys like Eric Powell. Eric Powell is the king of his little town in Tennessee. Yambar is the king of Youngstown, Ohio. Yeah. We don't have a king here. I tried to get there, but there's been some stumbling blocks.
Not yet. I'm making my moves.
Yeah, get your crown ready, shine it up. But yeah, it was actually, because when is this? Is this going to come out like soon, or just if I have to reference the date or not?
Tonight.
Okay. Yeah. So September 1st, because you were listening to this whenever you're listening to it. September 1st is actually my 10-year anniversary of actually making comics myself. So I've been doing this for 10 years. Woo!
So was that the first day, that 24-hour jam?
No, I don't count that, because that was just, I mean, I've drawn since I was a kid.
Yeah.
So that's all that really was. Just, let's see. But when I was really like, I'm going to make a story, I'm going to have characters, I'm going to develop things, I count, it's a nice, count that 10 year, because things always gestate.
Yeah.
You know, I was a writer before that. I wrote the book I ended up publishing after this. I had written before this.
Yes.
The actual novel.
Yes. So, I forgot about that book.
Yeah. And I could put out another one if I wanted to. It's just putting it together and editing it.
Yes,
that's the material for another.
The dirty secret is the amount of work that goes into it.
Yeah. Dave Sim always says, I'm going to keep name dropping, even though I don't know half of. Actually, I know everyone except for Dave Sim so far. Even though I have received a personal piece of mail from Dave Sim that was signed and drawn to me. But his big bitch about when everything went digital was he's like, I never learned how to draw digitally. I never learned how to color digitally. I know how to do everything by hand. I could learn how to do all that, but that's time I could just be drawing. Why don't I just have somebody else that knows how to do it? And it's the trick of being an indie guy. You have to be a businessman. You have to be a publisher. You have to be an editor. You have to be a letterer. You have to,
Yeah, I mean, we had to go with the other spectrum. We had Jonathan Glapion on. I don't know if you know who that is.
No.
He does all the inks for Greg Capullo.
Okay. He's doing better than I am, then.
He's doing better than most of us.
Right. Well, I said I didn't know who he was, so I have to give him credit.
Yeah.
He's obviously better than me.
So we had him on, we're talking about it, and he still has, he has this whole station at his desk of just different pens and different brushes, and he inks the old-fashioned way.
Okay.
But when you work for DC Comics, it's a little bit easier to be like, here you go.
But I'll tell you, if you're into it, if you're an inker, if you're into it, Jason Youngblood, he brought, and I think he said it was the first time he did it, he brought, quill and ink. Not a feather, but a loaded pen that you load the actual quill in. And that's how he drew it that 24-hour comic day, because he wanted to see, he was trying out a new way to ink. Yeah. So if you're into that part of it, where it's like, I'm gonna ink old-fashioned way, and I'm gonna try and, I found brush pens. Brush pens changed my inking game completely. I'm not a real inker, but feeling the way that even a brush pen versus a brush is amazing. For the people that are into it, Sim got really into brush inking. And there's a way to like where you want to harden the bristles and you want to cut the bristles because you don't want to lose bristles and you have to shape the brush. You don't want them all the same length.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's if you're into it, you're into it. Whether you got them, whether you work for DC or whether you're doing it in your garage.
Yeah, but he's able to be more prolific for that reason because he doesn't have to worry about all the like you said, an indie guy in his spot has to then scan it.
Right.
Blah, 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 blah. Whereas he does it and then next.
Right. Yes. It's always in life. It's always easier when someone else is cutting the check. That's the way my dad's self-employed. He goes, there's a difference between earning a living and earning a paycheck.
Yep.
And I kind of like earning a paycheck, but I'm also the guy that I earn the paycheck and then I go home and try to earn a living. So
makes two of us.
Yeah.
So, what was the first book or comic strip or anything that you did after you started?
Thought Crimes. That was my first. It was the website.
And that was the stick figures?
No, that was Meat Sticks. That was the second idea I had.
Okay.
The first idea I had was because I was a real big. Even before this, I was really into Least I Could Do and Control Alt Delete and Something Positive, which are all web comics.
Uh-huh.
They're web strips. And the one thing they all have in common was they're all groups of friends. They were at the time. They were all groups of friends in their 20s that were fictionalized versions of the creators.
Okay.
So that's what Thought Crimes was. It was me, at the time, my buddy Mark. No one is going to get that joke except me.
Those are the best jokes.
And Rich, if I might send this to Rich, because Rich was in it too. And then I brought in Ivan later. And I would do other things too. I would have like little spot gimmicks that were in there. That was when I started doing a Macho Man strip. And it was just crazy, like Macho Man spouting philosophical garbage that I would do every once in a while. And it was like, and I've actually thought about, I've redrawn that first strip twice. I drew it the first time and then I've redrawn it. And I was thinking about redrawing it again because it was based on a real event. First strip I ever did was BP, the main character, and Mark, MARCC, because why not? Go to the store. BP's kind of making eyes at the cashier. She's cute. Like, hey, what's going on? Slides his card, and it's denied. And then there's a huge slam. At which point Mark goes, "What was that?" And BP goes, "That would be her vagina snapping shut." Based on a true story. Went to the store, kind of making googly eyes at the cashier. She was kind of reciprocating. And it wasn't even that I didn't have money. It was something weird. It was one of those times where it was like the card needed to get activated again or something. Yeah. It was something stupid. But denied. And I could see the look on her face like, oh, no, never mind. And we do that. And then it was all these inside jokes. I mean, the second strip is us walking out. This isn't what happened next, but it's another story we had where when he was a kid, he had this cardboard cutout of Danny DeVito as the Penguin. And he was one of those kids where like his parents had a video camera so he'd make little home movies for himself. Mm-hmm. So he made this video where he was Batman. And he had like thrown some toy jewelry on the Penguin. And he's like, "Oh no, it's the Penguin, he's got the jewels." So that video existed. Then when they were teenagers, him and some of his other friends, he showed them that. He's like, "Look at this stupid video I made when I was a kid." So then they made a video parodying that. So then I made a comic strip where she's just like, I'm saying her vagina snapshot. Why do you embarrass me in public like that? At which point BB just goes, "Oh no, it's the Penguin, he's got the jewels." And then Mark's got this haphazardly Batman costume thrown on, just going like, "Get those jewels back, Penguin!" Jeez. It was goofy. It was just goofy shit. It's fun.
Yeah.
I love stupid ideas.
So I know you jumped from, what'd you say the book was? It was the stick figures?
So I was doing Thought Crimes.
Yeah.
Then I had the idea to do pornographic philosophers. But I didn't want to do a porn comic. So I made them stick figures because the idea of stick figure porn is hilarious to me.
Okay.
Because it's stick figure porn. So you don't see anything. There's no value to it from an erotic point of view.
Kind of like Team America World Police, the sex scene with the puppets.
Yes, but I'm trying to think of... I guess it would have been after that. But it was also... I think so. I think that came out when I was still like right after high school. So this was a couple years later. But it was also the fact that, like, they'd be talking about moral equivalencies while supposedly you're watching them have sex. And then that went right off the rails and just stopped being that completely. Because then I made a Hunter S. Thompson character, and he just became the star. Him and Groucho Marx became the star of the whole story. Because they're the most fun to do. Because Groucho was Gropo Marx, because they all have to have porno names. And then a lot of it was political, because it was just, I had to get it out somewhere. I had Nixon, where it was a flasher, and his dick was literally Nixon's head. So he'd hold open his trench coat, and there'd be Nixon's face, just wah! Oh, that was good times. That was also when I had, around Christmas, I would always do an end of the world story, because I watched History Channel, and History Channel, from the beginning of December to Christmas is Hitler, from Christmas to New Year's is the end of the world. That's what it always used to be. I don't know what they do now. It's all aliens, I'm sure. Alien Hitler.
Ancient alien Hitler.
Ancient alien astronaut theorists say yes. But yeah, and that's where I did a strip that I did, an idea that I thought was funny for years, where it's just the Antichrist and Jesus just sharing an apartment, getting mad at their dads because neither of them want to do what their dads want, and Jesus kind of has a crush on the Antichrist because Jesus being gay is always funny. And then God and Satan just are like, man, kids these days. Oh. That's where I did my God. My God would have the face of all the great philosophers of our time. You know, Lenny Bruce, George Carlin, Bill Hicks, Richard Pryor, great philosophers of our time. That was Thought Crimes. Thought Crimes ran for a long time. I still always dredge them up every once in a while. They're first love. First love has to be, the best.
Yeah, I remember you always had fun with that one.
I did. Meat Sticks was... I liked Meat Sticks a lot, too.
So where along the line does Cthulhu Holmes jump in? Because I know that's the big passion right now.
That was when I was working at the gas station. I was still doing Meat Sticks. I was doing Thought Crimes. Meat Sticks, by the way, is the origins of Ted the Zombie. That's where Ted the Zombie's born.
Okay.
Or Ted the Zombie, possibly my favorite character I've ever created. That was literally just one of those things where I was just sketching. I just started sketching again, just whenever. And then I was doing overnight shift, and I was sitting there, and I just drew this weird squid head guy. And I was literally trying to come up with names like Mr. Squidhead or something just goofy. And I was like, you could be a detective. Cthulhu Holmes. Problem solved. Cthulhu Holmes. And then it was I drew that and I went to LongCon because I wanted to make a quote unquote real comic book, not this web comic stuff. And I liked Scott Hall. I liked his, not Razor Ramon, but the comic artist Scott Hall of Michigan. He hates when people say that, but listen, Scott, Razor Ramon is more famous than you. You got to live with it. If there was a more famous Joe Pangrazio, and I'd have to live with it too. But I liked his style, and I wanted Jimmy originally, Jimmy Proctor, because Jimmy is a good guy, has a great style, and just Scott will do his own stuff. Jimmy won't. So I wanted to give Jimmy something to do. But it's Jimmy, so he didn't do anything. So I talked to Scott about it. And he's like, yeah, cool, we'll do that. And we did it. And the original plan, because that was when Freak Angels was coming out, which was a Avatar book by Warren Ellis, and I can't think of the artist because he has a beautiful I'm not gonna say his name because I'm gonna say it wrong if I say it. Duffin? I said I was gonna say it. I lied. But it's beautiful. Freak Angels. So go get it if you can because it's beautiful. But the way they did it was once a week they drop 5 pages or 6 pages depending. And that's how they serialized it for 4 or 5 years. Until the story ended. And I'm like, let's do that. Every week, get people on the site for 5 or 6 pages. Once you have enough for a trade or a single issue, trade really, put out the trade. I told Scott this. Okay. I said, I told him, we'll take as long as you need to take. There's no rush on it until you have a backlog, and then we can, because once we start putting them out, I don't want to miss a week.
Yeah.
Because it's building up consistency and building up an audience and all that other stuff. And artists are artists, and I'm a cartoonist, so I kind of know that. I'm like half an artist. Art would be very upset with me for saying that. Darwin Cook would be very upset with me for saying that. Cartoonists are good people. But he wanted to start putting them out. Because he just, it's hard when you're working in a vacuum.
Yeah.
And that's how a lot of projects die to the vacuum. Because if you're not getting any feedback, you're just like, no one cares. No one cares but me. And sure, I care. But this is a lot of time to put into something if no one's going to care about it. So that's where we started doing 3 pages a week. I do it Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Because that was what Control Elite used to do. Good. We did that for 6 months. And he got kind of burned out. So, all right, we'll stop there, Scott. We'll finish the story. Then we can put out your book, which is the book that's out there.
Mm-hmm.
And then Jimmy was all upset that Cthulhu Holmes was going to end. So I'm like, doesn't have to. If you want to do it. And then Jimmy did another 120 pages or whatever it is. And Jimmy got burned out. And then Holmes has just become whatever I come back to whenever I do it. Whether I do it as a strip or whether I do full pages. He's just one of those ideas that pops around.
So you've done one trade of that.
Yes.
And that was Scott's stuff.
Yes.
But Jimmy's stuff has never been printed.
And Jimmy's stuff will never be printed.
Okay.
But those pages may see print someday. Not Jimmy's pages. Because in case Jimmy hears this, I'm not going to print your stuff, Jimmy. He doesn't. As an indie creator, I have to be very pro creator rights. If someone doesn't want their stuff in print, you can't print it. Same reason I never printed Foulmouth Chris, even though I want to so badly because I think it's funny. But no, if someone says they don't want to print it, you can't put it in print. But, they might get redrawn. Who knows? Who knows what the future may hold?
And so you revisit that character here and there. Have you approached any other artists to continue it into a 3rd volume?
Yes, but artists like to get paid.
That is a problem.
I like to get paid, but no one pays me for doing my own books. So it's one of those things. It's Yambar has always been very fortunate. And part of that is his hard work. I don't want to diminish anybody. He gets stuff in print.
Yeah.
So an artist is willing to forego payment because Yambar will be like, I'm not going to give any trade secret, but I'm basically, you do the book, you get a portion, you get paid in books, and then you get back end. There you go. And they're happy because it's very great. I get books, so I can go to shows and I have work to show.
Yep.
It's great. For whatever reason, I have a harder time finding guys that want to do it. Or guys that say, like, yeah, let's do it. And then it just never goes anywhere.
It's funny because you saying that, I just, listeners know that I've been working on a project for a while now. And I went from a mutual friend of ours, who I won't mention, and she was into it, and then I don't have time for it.
Right.
Okay. I appreciate that. Or appreciate you taking time to look at it and give me your feedback.
Yeah.
And then we had a friend's cousin who did good work. He's done work for us on the show, and he was all about it. I want to start doing comics. I want to do this and that. We were talking back and forth. It was great. And then one day, just gone. So that's when I took to the board, and I was like, fuck it. I got the money, and I'm paying somebody. And I'm paying somebody now. And it's tough as a writer, because it's like, I put in all this work, and nobody's paying me for it, but I fork out money for this guy. Mm-hmm. And I get wanting to get paid for your work, paid for your art. Artist spends way more time on a project than I do.
Right.
But yeah, it's tough, and I get that.
It's one of those things where it's a passion play. It's a passion project for anybody involved, and it's people get in their heads, well, I'd rather work on my own stuff. Great, work on your own stuff. What frustrates me is that when it's someone I care about, and they're like, well, I'm gonna work on my own stuff. Okay, cool. They never put anything out, and it's like, I'll pull you. I'll be a work mule. I'll pull you along. Like, I'll give you something to draw, and then let's do it, and then you get all the credit because you're doing. Everyone sees what you do.
Yeah.
You get your money, love it, but it's and it's we were talking before. I'll say it on here. I don't care. You can't make money in comics. You can, but it's not the way it was. Mm-hmm. You're not, even if guys are working at Marvel and DC, you're not making the big bucks. Now, if I was hired from Marvel or DC, I could live within my means and probably make a living, quote unquote.
Yeah.
But my bar is much, much lower than a lot of professionals who have been in the commercial art field. I mean, we lost the Astonishing X-Men. Why can't I want to say Joss Whedon? It's not Joss Whedon. Is it Cassidy? John Cassidy did Astonishing X-Men.
Yeah.
He doesn't do comics anymore because he can do commercial work for movies. And they pay better and they pay more consistently.
Yes.
So he does storyboards, he does character designs. It's Jim Lee between the video games and movies and cartoons. That's why he doesn't do comic work anymore. Because those pay better and they pay more consistently. And you're not bent over killing your back at a drawing table or a Syntec now, driving yourself nuts. There's the infamous Jack Kirby quote that's beautiful because of how crushing it is. There was an artist, and he was a fine artist, had a background in fine art. And he was doing some comic pages, and he was at a convention in the 80s. And Kirby was looking at his portfolio, and he's like, this is great stuff. This is really great stuff. What do you want to do with it? And he goes, well, I'd like to make comics. And Kirby just stands up and looks at him and goes, don't do comics, kid. Comics will break your heart. And if anybody knows, it's Jack Kirby.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a tough business. Yeah.
You love it. RVP card. It's just words and pictures. You can do anything with words and pictures.
Yeah. Yeah, when you're sitting in your bedroom after developing something and then waiting on an artist to bring in page whatever and the colors to bring in blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
And you're sitting there going, all right, printer time. And you're looking at the printers and what are my margins just to make my money back?
Right. Just to not starve.
You know that you're doing something you want to do.
You talk to small guys that do shows, comic conventions. Sometimes they're just trying to get gas money to get home. Let me just sell enough to get home.
Yeah.
I've been there and I've done it. I always got home. But there was some tough times.
So you got that. You've done a few anthology books, I guess we'll call them.
Yes. That's what they are.
Okay, so they are that. I know Zombie Barbecue is a little of a different kind of anthology.
Zombie Barbecue is a Chris Yambar idea that was born out of LongCon that we've been sitting on for 8 years. Because we were talking about it. He's like, people love zombies, people love barbecue. Do Zombie Barbecue. Okay. And that was when Lindsay was still doing books. I was going to try and get him to do a story. And I had a story that I did with the great Rob, I'm going to say his name wrong, but I love him, Krubenberg. He's got a couple books out in previews. But he's from Europe, but he's got some stuff out in America. And he actually did the third volume of Jesus Hates Zombies, the last volume of Jesus Hates Zombies, whatever number it was. That was Rob. And he's a superstar. I love him. I've known him for almost 10 years. But I had a story from him, and then I had a Ted the Zombie story. And Yambar, I was always going to try and get Yambar to do a story, and I wanted Jimmy to do a story, but it was one of those things that just never hit right. It was one of those ideas Yambar came up with, and he goes, here, you do it, I don't care. Come up with ideas are free. Come up with ideas all day. It's just a matter of how much time you want to put into them. And then it finally came around where he had this short story that he had shopped around, and he had almost sold to a couple places, and then just never got in print. And he goes, I want to do Zombie Barbecue. I'm like, can I put my stuff in it? Yeah. All right, cool. Let's do it. So there's Zombie Barbecue. I have as many stories in that book as Yambar does, which is very rare for any Yambar book.
In Zombie Barbecue, if I remember, it's been a while since I read it, but there's comics in there.
Yes.
There's a few short stories as well.
That's
correct?
That's the short story he was trying to shop around.
Okay.
Back when I think it was Moonstone Publishing was originally who he wrote that for, and it was going to be in something because they were like the way that Zenoscope does like fairy tale horror.
Yep.
They were horror, so they wanted this short story they were going to put into one of their books in a comic book, but short story with spot illustrations. So that's what he finally was like, I'm putting my own book, putting his on barbecue. Oh, cool.
And then Kayfabe.
Kayfabe.
which I said right this time.
Yeah!
That is a wrestling anthology,
Yes.
which is your other big passion.
Ish. I love wrestling. When I was a kid, I loved wrestling. I was super into wrestling. I don't watch it now, unfortunately, but I was watching it in the Attitude Era. I was watching it in the Golden Years, so I have fond memories of that. I still love the business. But yeah, that's Micah Myers. Micah Myers is a letterer, and Micah Myers is blowing up, and there's chances if you are reading any indie book, you are at least reading one book that Micah Myers has lettered. He's a superstar. This was actually the second volume he'd put out. I didn't know him when he did volume 1. Otherwise, I would have been like, can I be in volume 1? And volume 3 is in the works. So, debating whether I want to try and go for that.
Which I did buy. I did read a little bit of it. Not for me.
Yeah, because it's not real wrestlers. It's fanfic for wrestling and comics. It's a special beast.
Yeah.
But that cover though, I love that cover.
The cover is fantastic.
If the whole book was just that, I'd be fine with it.
Yeah. And I gotta assume if you're a wrestling guy, it's gonna be more up your alley. But I was never, outside of playing the video games, I was never a wrestling guy. So.
And it's an anthology book. Anthologies are always tough in America, but the upside of anthologies are, if you don't like one story, there's a chance you'll like something else.
Yeah.
Because it's all different people.
Yeah, it always shocks me that anthologies don't work out here in the States, because I love anthologies, personally, especially when DC or Marvel do like a holiday-based anthology. Mm-hmm. But even Aftershock did a big one recently, and actually, speaking of Youngblood, he's doing one right now called Peak.
Okay.
And there's a few others out there, but they're always fun.
Yeah. Short
1, 2 to 8-page stories.
Yeah.
In and out.
The theory I've heard, and it's just a theory for comic writers, who knows, the big reason why they never caught on in America is because we don't rely on public transit as much. 2000 AD is the king of British comics. 2000 AD is an anthology. For those that don't know, 2000 AD is where Judge Dredd comes from. They take the subway everywhere. They take buses. They take taxis. So you always want to have some reading material. So again, you pick something up, and for the longest time they still had newsstands. So you pick something up. All right, I read half the stuff in here, but it gets me to work and gets me home. That's worth it.
Yeah.
Good
theory.
And 2008, I just started The Ballad of Halo Jones, which was an Alan Moore story in 2000 AD that was serialized in its anthology weekly. Oh, a lot of good stuff came out of 2000 AD. In fairness, a lot of good stuff probably still is, and I'm just not reading it.
Yeah.
Because here's the other little secret I'll tell you. More you make comics, the less you read them. And it's not out of anger or spite. It's just purely out of time. We're just like, you know what? I'll do my own thing. I've watched my pull list just dwindle down.
Here's the tough part. So, I am an avid reader. Mm-hmm. You know my pull list.
Yeah.
I am just dipping my toes, if you will, into creating. And we're also doing this.
Right. Yes.
So I have less and less time to read them. Uh-huh. But I have to read them or else I can't talk about them.
Right. Now that's the problem. See, that's where, I stream with my buddy. I stream video games. So that's completely separate from everything I do. I don't have to do any research for that.
And we can talk about that next, because that's where, starting this coming weekend, if you're listening to this when it comes out, I'm going to be streaming Spider-Man, and that was solely out of, I never have time to play video games. I want to play this goddamn game, and I get to create content while doing it.
So here's the dirty secret I'll tell you about streaming. Once you start streaming video games, if you enjoy it, because I enjoy it, you'll find that you enjoy it, but then you'll find there's times where you sit down and you start that console up and you go, I want to just play a game for me again. I don't want this to have to be something that goes out to the world. Because that's actually the game we're streaming that we have one session left, and we're putting it off because we know it's done once we do this. Divinity Original Sin, Enhanced Edition. It's on the Xbox One. It's by Larian Studios.
You do know the second one's coming out soon, right?
It's on pre-order for the one now. Yeah. I know. I say all that because every time I tweet it out, Larian Studios, the actual developer, likes that tweet. Yeah. So I'm like, hey guys. But we have one left, and that's, for those that don't know, it's basically a D&D ripoff. It's a fantasy RPG. You're playing 4 party members.
Baldur's Gate style video game.
Right.
Yeah.
But, we've been looking for the next thing to get into. Next game we're going to hop onto. Because we could just go into the second one, but there's importance in doing different things and not just being the same thing all the time. And we do 3-hour sessions, so that can be rough. It's nice to have a little hour session here or there. So, a game I had picked up when it was on sale, here's my buddy Chuck, I do it with my buddy Chuck, and he's like, Titanfall 2, get Titanfall 2, it's cheap. And I play it, I have it, so we can play it. Alright, cool. And I played through the campaign, he's like, yeah, I'll play the campaign first. Alright, cool, played it, and I enjoyed it. And then I'm like, well, you haven't played it in a while, I've never played multiplayer, so it'll be fun to get into it together and do it again. And did we stream the first one? I think we streamed the first one. And all of a sudden, or maybe we streamed the second one, but that first time we load back in, I haven't played FPS in years at this point. And I start running, and all of a sudden, pop, headshot, pop, headshot, pop. I'm like, oh, I forgot how good I am at that. And I told him, I go, because, we all have lives and stress, and, you find ways to cope with it, and I don't drink or do drugs, and, not all women return my calls. So I have to put it into something. So video games, I've realized, I remember, oh yeah, shooting people at FPS is what used to calm me down a lot. And it was, we streamed once, and then I streamed once by myself, and then I'm like, I went to put it out, I'm like, I'm just going to play for me right now. This is just for me. Been playing multiplayer for a week, and I've already prestiged once.
So... Yeah,
all ties in. That's what it is anymore. You can't just be, you can be a comic creator, but you can't just be a comic creator.
No, you can't
just be a podcaster. You can't just be one thing anymore.
You can't do one thing. It's got to be 1,000 things. And then you got to build a network, and it's a ton of work, but it's awesome.
Yeah,
I don't know how else to put it.
It's fun on its own, and if you can get a couple of nickels out of it, it's real fun.
Yeah, and that's the key right there.
Getting a couple of nickels.
Yeah.
I got one. Let's see who's finding the other.
I keep dropping my nickels somewhere. They go away. So, all this stuff we talk about, you're here to promote it, obviously. So, where can people find it all?
No, I'm kidding. JoePank.com. JoePanc.com. I actually, in anticipation of this, got my store all nice and shimmied up. I got a Square store on the site. I have some books there. But I also put up last night, if you want commissions. They're digital on the store. They're priced to be digital. So, you want a commission, I'll draw you something, I'll email it to you. If you want a hard commission, whether it be canvas, paper, or whatever, I don't care. That you can actually email me direct. There's info on the site for all that. And I also, I do HeroClix stuff on the site too, because I'm into HeroClix, which is a miniatures gaming thing. But I do content for that.
And you have all your books on there for sale?
Yes, except for Cthulhu Holmes, because Cthulhu Holmes is out of print right now. But I'm working on getting it into print.
Remember when I said at the beginning of this, we talked for an hour? Cool. And what's the Twitch site?
Joe Pank, I think.
So twitch.tv/.
You can find it, if you go to joepank.com, you can find everything. If you look for me, I'm on Instagram, JoePank36. Cthulhu Holmes on Twitter. You can pretty much find me as Joe Pank. Anywhere, or add a 3.6 after. Or search, if you feel brave, go to my site, see my name, search my name. There's like 5 people that have it in the world. So one of them's bound to be me.
That's always an interesting one. I don't want people to Google me because there's 2 of us. And one, I'm not going to say, but he may or may not be related to me. And he's been constantly getting in trouble with the law. Which is a lot of fun when I need to apply for a new job.
Yeah. I would imagine so.
But Joe, thanks for being on. Thanks for taking some time.
Thanks for having me.
And hopefully we'll do this again sometime.
Yeah. Next time I'll tell you about our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ.